Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very special webinar where we'll be discussing online film festivals and the trend of the festival business in the wake of this pandemic. As a quick note of administration before answering the portion of this webinar, please be sure to ask your questions in the Q&A box and not in the comment box. So we be sure to make sure that we get to as many questions as we can. So now that's out of the way, I'm your host, Tifanie, Jodeh of Entertainment Law Partners, and the moderator of this most distinguished panel, Stacey Reiss, Skizz Cyzyk, and Saul. So thanks for everybody for joining us. I will start by having each panelist introduce themselves, and we will start with Stacey.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for inviting me. I'm a producer. I produce documentaries and narrative films. I recently served as a juror at Tribeca Film Festival in the new documentary director category. And I've also been a juror at the Montclair Film Festival, as well as a filmmaker with a number of films that have premiered at festivals around the world. I recently produced a film called Spaceship Earth, which was at Sundance Film Festival this year, one of the few festivals that happened in person. And it was acquired by Neon and was released in the middle of the pandemic on May 8th.
All right, great. Thanks, Stacey. Let's start next with Skizz.
Hi, I'm Skizz. I'm a filmmaker from Baltimore, and I've had a long history of working for film festivals starting in the early 90s. I founded or co-founded Microcinefest and ran it for 10 years. I've been involved with the Maryland Film Festival since 1998. Serving as the programming manager for 9 of those years. I was involved with the Atlanta Film Festival, Slam Dance, and I've been on juries at most of those and several others, including Sidewalk in Alabama and Oxford in Mississippi and Indy Memphis and Bend in Oregon. And that's pretty much it.
All right, thanks, Skizz. And next and last.
Hello, I'm Saul. I'm a agent, motion picture lit agent over at Paradigm. I've been an agent now for 22 years with a specialty, in directors. I have been a judge for a number of the screenplay portion of a number of film festivals and a juror with Austin. But I've worked with Sundance, South by Southwest, a lot with the Austin Film Festival, and a lot with the Cleveland Film Festival as well, and Sarasota Film Festival over the years. So yeah, and right now is a really interesting time in this business to be an agent. We're learning. We were learning the mistakes of putting eggs all into the live events basket now. When before it was like, hey, we're afraid of a writer's strike. Now there's another issue that the agencies have to deal with. And I think, we're going to see what this business looks like in the next 6 months. And it's going to be something I think that we've never seen before. I'm a former film school brat from Florida State University. I went and got my MFA there. And I'm a former theater director. So that's it in a nutshell.
Well, thanks. I think, Brian, that really leads us into definitely then start off with the first question is basically you all have contributed in this current film festival setting. So how is your experience different from before, from the norm?
Who do you want to start with?
Let's start with Brian.
Well, I still think we're trying to figure out what the norm is. Things are changing daily. When are we going to open back up? Are there going to be theaters to be opening up back to? When will production start? How is production going to start? What are the projects that are going to start first? I represent, a director who's directing Planet of the Apes, and they're starting production, but they're doing most of it through the Unreal Engine. Which is the Epic game engine. So I think you're going to see a lot of effects-driven projects going first, and you're also going to see smaller productions that can shoot which I think is going to be good for the independent business. You know, as far as, you know, how that affects you guys and film festivals, I really think, you know, and Stacey and Skizz, we were talking about this before that, I really think we're in unknown territory. You know, it's not just about, can we all go to Sundance? I mean, is Park City like the best place to have a Sundance? Is Toronto a better place because there's more wide open spaces? What does this mean for theaters? How are we going to screen these movies before they even go to festivals? There's just a lot of unanswered questions, and I really don't know what the answer is right now. And I think people are talking every day about trying to figure it out. So I have a non-answer to that question, but no one knows.
Okay. Stacey, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I recently was a juror at Tribeca Film Festival, which happened virtually. And I mean, one thing I'll say is I watched 16 movies to judge, and I had plenty of time to watch 16 movies in like a 10-day period, which is not normally the case. But I think the way that that festival handled it is it wasn't a festival that was open to the general public, but they kept the jurors and they kept these categories for competition, knowing that if you're a film and a director that's awarded an award at a festival, that helps you with distribution. And I thought that that was really like a great experience, that those directors that, you know, won in the different categories, in the documentary category I was part of, I know that those films don't have distribution. And I imagine that having that Tribeca Film Festival award is going to help them as they go out into the marketplace. And I think if you think about film festivals, they kind of function in two ways. For filmmakers, they're either a place to showcase or premiere a film that already has distribution, or they're a place to gain distribution and gain an audience. And so I think that, you know, as much as we can, if we can't have them in person, how can we still have that experience right now? And that's something to think about.
And Skizz, you've served on many film festivals. What do you think about it?
Well, it's funny because you were asking about the jury experience, and I've only juried one festival so far this year, and that was Kansas City Film Fest International. And it really wasn't much different because they always have you watch the films in advance, or usually have you watch the films in advance. And this time I was the only juror in my category, so I didn't really get together with any other juror members to deliberate. So it was just, I watched a bunch of films here at home, and I told them who I thought should get the awards. I guess the biggest difference is I didn't get to go there. You know, I didn't get to be there and meet people and see films that weren't in the category I was judging. And that was kind of sad because I was really looking for, I love traveling to film festivals. That's kind of why I do it. So to not get to go was kind of a letdown.
Right. No, I think we're all feeling and suffering that. But so leading into that, Stacey, you had just mentioned this a little bit, but obviously film festivals are one of the biggest supporters and platforms for independent film. How will festivals like Tribeca be able to continue such support in this online format?
You know, that's a good question. I think in terms of in this format, I don't think you can replicate the in-person experience. I mean, to add a little bit more to my experience with Tribeca, they did try to make it an exciting experience, even if we were all at our homes. Like the kickoff Zoom call had Jane Rosenthal and Robert De Niro on the call. So it was like, you know, fun to be on a Zoom with, you know, Robert De Niro. And my group of 5 jurors, like we met a couple of times in that screening process. Like we broke up the films into groups, and then we kind of met online and kept talking about them just so we could feel like we were having that kind of in-person experience that all of us really love about being part of a film festival. I think that the important thing is, like, if you can't replicate the in-person experience, like how can you support filmmakers and these films otherwise? And I think that one great thing that film festivals have is they have huge mailing lists. So I know with Spaceship Earth, we did a lot of panels for different film festivals around the country. And we did, you know, Newport Film Festival and Martha's Vineyard Film Festival and Utah Film Center. And email blasts went out to all of their, you know, their groups talking about our film, talking about this panel. And I think just in terms of, you know, creating a buzz around a film and creating an audience, if you can't do it in person, you know, maybe you can capture people's eyeballs in their inbox and try to get them to, you know about your film and watch your film. So I think that as film festivals sort of moved online, I think that there should be some consideration into, you know, how can you build an audience? How can you help filmmakers with distribution? And how can you showcase these great films that we're not doing in person, and use that as kind of a way to think about what your plan is going forward.
Right. So you mentioned like flooding people's inboxes with different content, and just staying on the subject for a second. Do you think then there are different variety of ways, instead of just being one of many emails in somebody's inbox, to help support these filmmakers in this, in such an online presence? Is there like potential press that you've seen been done, or anything that's maybe a little bit out of the box that these film festivals are trying to do?
I mean, I think it's about offering something different. So what is different about it? Often it's having a conversation like this. I mean, many people don't get to go to film festivals. They don't get to be in the audience and see the director and producers or film subjects stand in front and answer questions. But in this, you know, Zoom virtual world we live in, like, anyone can attend a film festival. There's not really this barrier to entry. And so I think in some ways, like I was saying before the call, like, we were able to be in, you know, in many places in a given week, where normally we would have had to travel to all these different places to, you know, to show our film. So I think that if you can offer something, a conversation or a takeaway, I think that's a way of getting people to, you know, attracting people, rather than them just going on, you know, iTunes or figure out another way to watch it.
Right, right. So going through that, then, in general, do you think online film festivals maybe can ultimately replace the physical ones? Skizz, what do you think, starting there?
I don't think so, because there's no replacement for being in a group of people and meeting people and hanging out with them and watching a movie and discussing it afterward. Yes, you can watch the movie together online and then have a conversation afterwards, but it's just not the same as actually being there and going to get a drink, you know, or a meal with some people you just met. I do think, though, that a lot of festivals will probably continue this online thing, like even after we're all allowed to be in the same room together. Because, well, for one thing, as somebody that started a film festival, I can remember some years where it was really hard to find a venue. And now the venue is whatever platform on the internet your festival chooses to use. And if it works, keep doing it. I don't think it'll be a replacement, but I also don't think that festivals will stop doing it when they're allowed to.
Right. Ryan, what do you think there?
Well, I think there's the short term. Hold on, I keep getting these. I mute myself. There's the short term, which is now, and I think, you know, for the next year, this is maybe going to be our reality. Eventually, it's going to end, and we're going to be going back to Toronto. We're going to be going back to Sundance. We're going to be going to Baltimore and Texas. But I think the lessons that we could be gaining from it is what can we take from this experience, like Stacey had said? I mean, is there a part of the, you know, of South by Southwest where if I can't buy a plane ticket or a ticket to go there, can I pay to have access to these films from Zoom? Can I be a member of the community and take place in some of these online Q&As? And I think that's only going to add to the festival experience for the future. I think you know, I think we also need to look at economically what's going to happen once we get through this too. You know, you look at from an agency perspective, are the agencies going to be able to, you know, they'll be able to afford it, but I mean, are they going to want to pay for travel to some of these film festivals to scout new talent? And if there's a way to, have the film festival experience. Yes, it's great, live, premieres, red carpets, that's all awesome. But if there's another way to do it where we can also see the films in a virtual way and interact with the community in a virtual way, I think there's something to be learned from that. Because there should be no more borders, economically, where if I'm a young filmmaker, shooting something in Topeka, Kansas, and I want to have that film festival experience because I'm a filmophile, well, the economic limitations shouldn't preclude me from experiencing that festival in a way. Maybe it's not live, but still you feel part of that film community. I think that's where we're going. I think it's going to be a hybrid of all of these things that we're talking about. And access to independent film, I think, will be also greater than it's ever been before.
That's interesting. And just to touch on that, you represent directors, and there is a very important part of that for talent and getting talent to travel and being comfortable with them attending these festivals. It's ultimately a ripple effect. So what are you telling your clients as far as like should they be doing these film festivals, or should they be waiting? How does that work in for your client base?
Well, I have a couple of projects, and I'm looking at it from both the production end of things and now distribution, because and film festivals, because I have a couple of projects that were in post, clients' projects that were in post when all of this started happening, and we were shooting, for Toronto. Now we would be shooting for Sundance, and and as those dominoes fall, we're trying to figure out, well, where do we get placed? Or is the strategy then, well, let's shoot the film festivals and go, let's go right to finding distribution. Is that going right to Netflix? Is that going right to Amazon? Is that going right to Hulu or HBO Max or any number of these streaming platforms? And I think more of these streamers are going to come out of this. I think you're going to see some independent streaming companies. I'm talking, I don't know if you know Brian Gilbert, but he's putting something together that is kind of an alternative to a Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, that's going to focus on, independent films that maybe haven't been able to find distribution. And he has the money behind it to launch it. Now, from a production standpoint, what we're telling clients is, look, I have projects ready to go in production, independent project that they're shooting in July in Louisiana. Another one wants to start shooting in October in Vancouver. So, but we're all in a wait and see. I think production is going to start up sooner than a lot of people think. And I'm telling clients to just, to pray right now and stay positive, because no one really knows. We can only control what we can control. And Lionsgate and all of these other places can put out their treatises on, this is how we're going to go back into production, but it's going to come down to two things. And film festivals, by the way, it's going to come down to insurance, and it's going to come down to the unions. And when they say we're okay and ready to go, that's when we're going to go. And talent, right, by the way, because they're going to be sequestered.
Right. The comfort of the talent is always the ripple effect. That's for sure. So leading into that, Skizz, as we all know, you have served as a juror before, and do you think the shift right now to the online edition is blown out of proportion? You think people are just making too much of a big deal about it? Or are they really that different? Is it still beneficial right now?
I think festivals are doing what they have to do in order to keep giving their audiences something. And I'm starting to see more festivals doing a lot of online stuff, but at the same time, they're starting to do drive-ins. They're actually starting to do outdoor screenings where there's social distancing. And it's a start to getting people back together. I don't think it's been blown out of proportion at all. I think it's, we're just doing what we have to do.
And the drive-in theaters, is that obviously, you know, with a place like New York, you're not able to do that, but maybe for some of the more, you know, like Kansas City, or was it, you have a lot more land, that might be an opportunity. Are you seeing a lot of interest in that? That's something that may be a trend, or just maybe a Band-Aid right now?
I hope it's a trend. I mean, for one thing, I love drive-in movie theaters. The one that we have left here in Baltimore, the Benji's, was just given the okay to open to the public this week. They just reopened last night. But I've been seeing some of the festivals that I go to frequently, Oxford in Mississippi and Sidewalk in Alabama. They've been doing this drive-in thing. It looks really fun. I mean, I kind of wish I was there. I wish I was there anyway, but I'm not near anybody that's actually doing film festivals as a drive-in. But if I were driving distance, I would definitely go to them.
We did a special, I was gonna say, we did a special screening for Spaceship Earth in LA at the drive-in. That was a way that we could have a premiere and have people come and watch the film in person before it was available on Hulu and iTunes and everywhere else. And it was fun to see it that way.
How many people did you have? What kind of, did you have press there, or what was the purpose of the screening?
I think it was a sneak peek screening. I wasn't there because it was in Los Angeles and I wasn't in Los Angeles, but I saw photos and it was quite full, and there was some press and some, you know, regular, you know, cinephiles that wanted to go out and see the movie. And it's still playing at some drive-ins. I think drive-ins are having a bit of a revival right now, obviously.
Yes, that's for sure. That's definitely for sure. Ryan, going back
real quick,
to
Tiffany, I also think, and this is not film related, I think we're going to see that in the music industry very soon as well. These drive-in concerts, you know, maybe we're not going to go see U2 at a drive-in, but, you know, I think there'll be, you know, independent bands that are maybe, you know, the traditional bands that would do not stadiums, but arenas, or, you know, popular local bands. You're going to start seeing a lot more of using the drive-in as a way to at least re-enter the live entertainment scene.
Ryan, do you think that's a new business plan, or do you think, again, that's just like a Band-Aid?
Well, I think a lot depends on where we are with this virus, or any potential viruses. I mean, or civil unrest. Or, we're in uncharted territory here. So I do think, and I've thought this for a decade, that, you know, these streaming services, you know, when we first started getting into talking about online, we're going to change independent film for the better. And people around the world are going to have more access to independent film than ever before from their living room. You know, how many movies now are made, you know, directly for, it was like originally for like DirecTV. It's replacing the home video market. But now you're seeing things on HBO Max, or, you know, what's this movie? With the oh my God, the woman from Blackish. You know, the one that's been, I can't remember. It's now being, you know, advertised all over the place as direct. Like, that's something that you probably would never go see in the theater, but, you know, people are watching it from home right now. I think people will love to get out, but people also love to kind of stay in and have a personal experience with their films and their entertainment. Again, I think it's going to be a combination of both moving forward. But do I think drive-in concerts are going to replace going to the Troubadour, if the Troubadour even exists anymore, or going to an arena to see Fish or something like that? No, because you have to be there to have that experience. I think film festivals are going to be the same way. Although I do think the online portion of it, the virtual portion of it, is going to help smaller film festivals. You know, some of these film festivals that, you know, I don't go to as an agent, but have local films or local filmmakers, like, I'm more apt to tap into the online version of, you know, the Alabama Film Festival than I would flying to Alabama. I don't have the time to do that.
Right.
So I think that, yeah, I think that's the thing that some of these smaller film festivals and independents are going to benefit from what we're learning today.
Right. Okay. So thanks on that. That's a lot to think with, and we've gotten a lot of chat going on about that. And there's, I guess, Ticketmaster and some Live Nation is trying to make plans for that. So that's a really interesting subject matter as well. But leading into the next question, this one's for Stacey and Ryan. So one concern for producers and filmmakers like yourself is whether participating in a digital film festival may adversely affect your distribution offers. What do you think?
I honestly don't know. I haven't heard that it has affected distribution. So I can't really speak to whether someone, if they premiere at an online film festival, I mean, film festivals have always been separate than distribution. So I haven't heard that anyone hasn't gotten distribution because they've decided to play in an online film festival. I don't, you know, I know that with Tribeca, they were saying to filmmakers that participated that they didn't need to count this as like premiere status. Like sometimes a lot of these film festivals, especially some of the top tier ones, they all want to be, you know, the world premiere or the US premiere. And a lot of these festivals were sort of removing those premiere restrictions and being, you know, sharing more around these films. So that was exciting to me, that if a film premiered at Tribeca as part of this online festival, but then let's say Toronto happens, they could still say it was a world premiere at Toronto because there was no audience, at least for Tribeca. But in terms of distribution, I don't know. I mean, maybe Ryan has more to say about that. I haven't really heard about that.
I have a couple things to say. I think independent film distribution, with the exception of, you think about how many independent films there are in any given year, and you think about the percentage of those that actually get wide distribution. And the theaters that actually show independent films have been shrinking as well. I think we've had a problem with independent distribution for a long time. I think how does, you know, showing your film in a digital Tribeca or a digital Toronto affect distribution? I think the answer is a little unclear because we don't know what distribution is going to look like, you know, at least over the next couple of years. I mean, is it distribution to theaters? I mean, or is it going to be, hey, here's our digital window and we're going to reserve the right to do 25 cities if we can distribute in those 25 cities? I mean, the first thing we got to do when it comes to distribution is actually get people back into theaters. And I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. Like, as far as like the way it was happening. And we had a problem getting people in the theaters long before this. You know, this is only going to make it worse. I mean, theaters were operating at very, very thin margins. I think, you know, it can go one of two ways, where the last time we had a pandemic in 1918, that was when, I can't remember who it was, but one of the studios, and it was MGM, I can't remember, started buying up all the independent mom and pop theaters, and began what is now our current distribution model, where you have giant theater chains, all, you know, in conjunction with the studios. And I think you're starting to see it now with, well, okay, yes, I know that, yes, the last pandemic was 1968. Thank you for correcting me. However, the last, like, where 60 million people died, and, you know, it changed the way we distribute films. I think, you know, in 1968, people were still I'm sorry, I got distracted by someone correcting me on the last pandemic. So, I think we're heading that way. I think Netflix is going to start buying theaters. I think Amazon is going to start buying theater chains and bailing them out. I think Saudi Arabia is going to start buying our theater chains. And how that's going to affect independent film, I think remains to be seen. I know this, you know, as someone who looks for talent, it doesn't change the way that I find directors. It's not. Like, I sign most of my directors off of screeners anyway. I like the visceral experience of watching a movie with an audience, but also I've learned that watching a movie with an audience can also skew my opinion of what I think of a film. And so I personally would much rather watch a film in my world rather than, you know, let an audience dictate to me whether something is good or not from a director's standpoint. Did that answer your question? I tend to.
Yeah. No. I mean,
Yes,
like, you know, at least with my clients, just, you know, from a lawyer's point of view, doing these deals, there's a lot more questions from these streamers about, you know, what was the distribution platform of this festival? Can you go play online now to view it, or was it only temporary during the time of the festival? So there's a lot more query on it because these streamers are very concerned that they're going to pay a lot of money for these films and find out that they can find them otherwise on some other link, or the festival has been able to distribute it publicly and that it stays that way. So it's really a question of value and really more in-depth conversations about how the film festival is supporting the film during the time of the festival, but what happens to the film afterwards? Where is it at? How is it housed? So, you know, that's definitely something to consider when, you know, my clients and I look at potentially accepting premiering our film on these different platforms. So, and it's a very different conversation, at least for me as a lawyer. It's not like I can go down and look at a book or a standard industry answer. So it really has to be a lot of communication and making sure to protect client and really the success of the film. So, cool. So let's talk, Skizz, you mentioned this earlier, so I'll let you take this one to start out with. Obviously, a really big incentive to going to a film festival is those free drinks and that networking opportunity. And a lot of us are really struggling with that. I mean, I'm sure all drink still wine a lot at home, but how are you getting out there? How are you seeing people networking right now?
That's a tough one. I tend to make a lot of enemies when I say that I don't like the network and I don't like to be networked. I tend to distrust people that are sucking up to me, thinking that I can pull a string and help them in the future. I like to make actual friends. So the whole thing of networking, I think the alternative has already been happening, which is social media. I'm sure we all experience this every fall. I start getting an influx of friend requests from people that I don't know. And then after I accept their friend request, I get a message asking if I can pull a string and get their film in the Sundance. I'm like, oh, this again. I don't expect that to go away. I actually expect to get more of it. And actually this year, I have a feeling there's gonna be a lot of filmmakers thinking that the bigger films are gonna sit it out, and that's gonna make it easier for the smaller films to get in. So I expect that I'm gonna get a lot more of those messages in the fall.
Stacey, what was your experience?
I think taking maybe like a little bit of a different, you know, in terms of looking at it, not as networking, but maybe more as like career building or trying to learn, you know, do maybe a little bit more education around parts of the business where you might want to have like a more in-depth conversation around something. I mean, one of the things that's been interesting is lots of organizations like this panel today are hosting things every week. So like in the documentary space, IDA and the Documentary Producers Alliance and who else? Women in Film. They've been all hosting these different panels and like hangouts and talks. And a lot of people have more time on their hands now than ever before because they're stuck at home and people are more accessible. So I think in a professional way, if you want to join some of these conversations and listen in and learn a little bit more about, you know, how to produce, how to get your films in festivals and look at it like from a networking from that point of view, I think you are able to kind of sign into some of these things, get your questions answered. People are more available. And it's not the same thing as like sitting next to someone in a theater. I mean, I've made friends, you know, at Sundance, sitting next to someone on an airplane or in a theater, and there's nothing that's ever going to replace that experience. But, you know, at festivals, people are like I'm off to the next screening, I'm off to the next party. You have like 2 minutes here and there. And right now people are, you know, spending an hour talking to people, answering questions. And I think it's a way that you can, you know, make connections with people, like meaningful connections, and learn a little bit more about the business if you are interested.
Do you think that the networking opportunities are better for those people who can't make it to these festivals and are maybe able to take advantage of this current landscape that we are working in right now?
Yeah, I definitely think for, you know, up and coming producers and directors, people who are making their first film, I think there's sort of this wealth of resources right now that people can tap into, and people with a lot of experience that are willing to share some of their experiences. So I certainly think for that sort of subset of the population, it's, you know, there's a lot to tap into for sure.
Right, right. All right, so kind of building on what we had mentioned earlier about different formats and how success can come on the small screen. And this is for Skizz and Ryan. We'll start with Ryan. Do you think different genres benefit better from being online versus other genres? And why should they or should they not? And who should just hold back and wait and potentially wait for the audience?
I don't think anyone should wait. I don't. I mean, I think, at least, and this is only my perspective, and I'm not looking at it totally from the film festival experience. I'm looking at it from a looking for new talent perspective. I think the one thing that is coming out of everything that's going on right now is the search for new voices, diverse talent, different types of storytelling are more important than ever. And also, I think you're finding the breakup of some of these agencies are also going to help on people's search for talent as well. You look at what's happening at WME, you look at what's happening at, you know, my place, at least, you know, for the next 48 hours. You look at what's happening there, you know, agents are now segueing into management companies or managers because, you know, we're getting tired of being told what to do, especially the people who are filmophiles at heart. If you'd have told, you know, Grateful Dead following Ryan Saul that he'd be wearing a suit every day to work and, you know, that was going to be your life, he'd have been like, F you, man, I've never wear a suit. Well, you know, 25 years later, I find myself doing that, but I've never lost my passion for the art of filmmaking. So, you know, and I think there are other agents out there like that. So I think right now is probably one of the best times to be a independent filmmaker or a writer or to tell stories that we have not seen before, because all of this upheaval, everything that you're seeing, and it always comes after upheaval, some of the best art and some of the best films are created out of that. So I know that I'm telling clients, no, do not wait. Do not wait to write that screenplay or that story that you always wanted to tell. Do not wait to go shoot that movie. If you can somehow shoot that movie now in isolation, like, go do it, because that's going to be a story. I don't know how many COVID or this is what I did during the riot stories we're going to be able to handle, but, you know, like, go at it, because the whole goal for all of you guys out there, whether you're filmmakers or distributors or independent producers, is you have to make film. Because if you were doing anything else, you would do it, because this business, it kind of sucks as a business, you know, but it's better than selling insurance, you know? So I just think, like, no, do not stop. You know, I'm, you know, in working with one of my directors who's in post right now, I am looking at cuts with her, like, every other week. We are taking this time to, like, find the right cut, even though the cut was supposed to be picture locked a month ago. Who gives a shit? Because we're not where we're going to sell it right now. So let's just keep going. You know, let's make it as good as we can. Let's start talking about what the next project is. Because people are getting hired, materials being sold. This business is not stopping because we all have to do it virtually. But we'll find a way to keep going. We'll find a way to survive. So you guys got to do it too creatively. All right, that's my soapbox.
And Skizz, what do you think? Do you think one genre over another too?
Oh
or?
shit! I didn't even answer the question. No, there's no genre. You write what you write. Do it. There's no. Although, like studios want, Netflix really wants romantic. I'm sorry, Skizz. Like Netflix is really looking for romantic comedies right now, but that's going to change in 2 weeks. You know, we really need animation. If you're in animation right now, holy shit! Like, call me, because like that's what's being made. Everything's in production. All right, sorry, Skizz. Go. My bad.
I was thinking of so many different things to say based on things that Ryan was talking about that I completely forgot what the question was. One of the things that he said about how many films we're going to see with COVID-19 as part of the subject matter. I've actually been working on a documentary following around an artist, and it was supposed to be from last April till this April, and of course by the time this April rolled around, we're all quarantined. And I've really struggled with, do I even include that? Because I mean, I was a film programmer when Katrina happened, and we had like 4 years worth of Katrina films come in the pile of entries every year. It's like, oh man, I don't want to make one of those films. But anyway, that's one thing. Another thing Ryan said was watching a film with an audience can skew your opinion of that film. And it reminded me of all the times as a screening entries as a programmer or screening films as a juror. Comedies just are not as funny when you're alone watching them on a laptop as they are when you're in a theater with an audience that's laughing at. I mean, that's the whole rule of the laugh track. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of the late night comedy shows these days aren't as funny, because the audience isn't there laughing. So I would say comedy is one of the genres that's probably hurt most by not being seen by an audience in the same room. At the same time, I don't know. I keep hearing that there are comedy TV series that are doing really well streaming. So what do I know?
Right. Okay, well, I think what we're going to do is we're going to jump into these Q&As, because we have gotten quite a few of them. So I'm gonna read them, and Stacey, Skizz, and Ryan, just raise your hand or jump in, because this is from our audience. So the first one is from Reverie. Okay, being a judge of fun work, what qualities do you look for considered award-winning? Material, subject matter, address. Oops, sorry, it went away. Oh, sorry, Reverie. Sorry, your question went away. I'm so sorry. Can you rewrite it? So I'll just jump to the next one. Sorry about that. Just from Christina. So the panel, in a landscape of heightened security for films and anti-piracy, how do you think the distribution companies and studios will be showing their films to an online audience with certain DRMs in place? Anybody want to take that?
I'm not a security expert. I have no idea.
I'll answer it just in my general understanding. Again, it's a conversation. This is all new stuff. And it's just a question of whether or not these film festivals are able to secure these films, passwords, taking them off, one view only situations. But again, this is something that I think the studios are still dealing with even more now, because there's so much more content being consumed online. So that's a really a very hard one to answer in light of, everyone's really trying to have the best intentions with these different premieres of these films. And so it's just up to a conversation on how these films are being distributed and what these studios may need in order to feel comfortable themselves to distribute them. Okay, so we're back to Reveille again. They write, already this lockdown has decreased air pollution globally. The homestead has already solved certain aspects and will continue to create a quality of life improvement. Do we keep this up?
Wait a second, hold on. I thought Revelry's question was...
This is the second one.
Oh, okay. I thought it was being a judge of fun work, what qualities do you look for to consider award-winning?
Right. On mine, it went away. So, but if you have it, Ryan, you answer it.
All right. So
you take this
Revelry's question was, being a judge of fun work, what qualities do you look for to consider award-winning? Material, subjects addressed, script, or visual aspects of the film work? What specifically interests you?
Anybody?
I mean,
Anybody?
I know that when I screen a lot of work, both as a juror and also for other awards like guilds and things that I'm part of. And I know I'm always looking for originality. Like, is there a fresh take on a story that may have been told before, but a different point of view? Is it a story I've never heard before? Is it visually beautiful? Because I think that matters. Is the access when it comes to a documentary something that's so unique and I've never seen before? I know that the film that won the award at Tribeca, it was just such incredible access, and the director spent years shooting this verite film with her subjects and clearly gained so much trust that it just that just came through so clearly in this relationship. So those are some of the things that I look for when I'm looking at work.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. I've been asked this before, like, how do you know which ones are the winners? And it's like, well, you know it when you see them. Like, it's kind of hard to pinpoint, but Stacey just did pinpoint a lot of it. I remember I was on a jury once where there were 12 of us. It was a big jury, and it got ugly. And there were two films in particular. One was about the small town girl who moves to the big city to make it in show business, and she gets robbed and all these awful things happen, and she almost turns around and goes home and blah, blah, blah. In the end, her play is a hit. And then the other one was about the guy that gets out of prison and he's trying to go straight, but all the people from his past are trying to pull him back into a life of crime. And the jury wanted to give these films awards. And, I admit they were well-made awards, but I had to keep saying, we've seen these films. Like, this shouldn't be an arts and crafts show. These filmmakers have proven they know the craft of filmmaking, but do they know the art of filmmaking? And I really argued for an experimental film, an experimental feature. And we had a big compromise. All those films got awards that year, but I feel like, man, if I hadn't been there, that wonderful feature-length experimental film would still, would still be unknown. It is still unknown, but at least they have an award, on their website.
Right. Okay.
For me,
thanks for that. Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
For me, it's just really about the storytelling. It is, I look at these things as like, it's a story I can tell around a campfire, and that's a comedy, or that's a drama, or I do a lot, where I represent a lot of documentary directors and transitioning them into narrative. And, what I look for, even in the docs, like people like, I don't know, Kim Schneider, who just did Us Kids, that was at Sundance this year, and she did the Newtown documentary. She makes me cry in her docs, or she inspires me. So it gets me moving. Or like, these guys, David Ebersol and Todd Hughes, who did the Pierre Cardin documentary. I mean, it was poppy. It jumped off the screen, and you just go, okay, like, these guys could be doing narrative if they want, and women if they want to. I also look for animation directors who I think can make the transition to live action if they can tell a good story. It's really across every genre. And if it moves you, then that's the one that I'm going to go, that made me cry. And I cry, I'm a crier. So it has to be really make me bawl. Like, there was a movie in Toronto 2 years ago that was, oh my God, now I can't remember the name. It was this 21-year-old director. I cried for 10 minutes at that movie. And I've been trying to sign that director ever since, although it was called Clara. And it was a really unique idea about a guy he's a scientist. He's trying to kill himself, but then he discovers this planet that didn't exist before. And in doing so, he finds his muse, he finds his love. And like, I've never seen a story like that, but it's a classic story, boy loses girl, boy tries to kill him, you know, or boy goes down in the dumps, and boy needs to find girl again. There's like what my screenwriting teacher told me, there's 7 stories to tell. It's just how you tell them. And like Skizz is right. You know, when he was telling, when I hear about the redemption story of prison, or like the person who moves up to Los Angeles and tries to, like, that movie has to be really freaking good, because I've seen that story, I've read that story a zillion times. But if there's a unique way to tell it, a love story with science fiction, you know, or whatever, like I have this script I just sold, it's The Persian Get Out, like with a sci-fi twist. I haven't seen that, and I was like, okay, I can sell this, and it's a blacklist script, and now Ben Stiller's involved in the whole thing. So like, it's uniqueness, it's storytelling, it's character. It's all about character, in my opinion.
Thanks. Okay, thanks, Ryan. All right, so just a quick, Steve Shore. Hi, Steve. He just wanted to make a comment for everybody that the Sonoma International is doing an online concurrent to their postponed festival, which is July 30th, and they will have drive-ins and outdoor social distance screenings. So there we go, Skizz. That's definitely gonna make things a little bit better. Yeah. And Martine, hi, Martine. I think we answered your question about possible security. She just says apparently the films from South by Southwest were leaked and it became a mess. Do you agree? I think we just had talked about it earlier, that it's going to have to be a conversation with the distributor and find out how best to figure it out. And I'm sure Southwest did not purposely do that. And it's all about security. But I think that's always been a problem, even when, even outside of this pandemic. Does anybody else have an idea, input on that? Okay, next one, Ilona. Where is the quality of the image now if films go online? Will it make even films to be shot on tablets? I think Ryan, you had mentioned just the quality of films earlier.
Steven Soderbergh shot an entire movie on his iPhone, and that seemed to do okay. I mean, I don't think it was his best work, but from a filmmaking standpoint, to be honest with you, from a quality standpoint, it looked like a 16 millimeter. I mean, or an old 35 millimeter film. I mean, but it was the storytelling. Quality. Here's where quality of looks in movies that are going to be projected on the big screen, that are giant action type projects, but Jojo Rabbit is something you might want to see on a big screen, but do I need to see I think of some of the Academy Award-winning films or nominated films that you don't need to see on a big screen. I think, look, what it looks like is important, but what's more important is what it is that you're trying to say. What's your story? You can shoot something on your iPhone. You can shoot something on we used to shoot 16 millimeter, movies, and if it told a good story, you watched. I don't know. I don't think it affects, how it is that we watch movies. And I look at what I'm going to use Mouse Guard as an example. Some of you might know about this project, but it was a project that got abandoned 2 weeks before production was supposed to start, even though they already sunk $40 million into it. It was all being done in this Unreal game engine, the Epic. So up until that point, it was used as a gaming device or a gaming way of visually putting games together. But the output of that, and this is how you're going to previs movies, with big action sequences or big visual effects. The previs output is so good that it's broadcast quality. Now, is it something we can show at the ArcLight on a giant screen? No, you're going to have to, you're going to have to treat it. But the output from this game engine now is it's broadcast ready right out of the box. So I don't think it's about the visual as much as it is about the story that you're telling.
Okay, thanks. And I'm going to do one more. Sorry for those people that I didn't get to. Henry, Roy, hi there. Let's see if Stacey take this one. This is from Carlos, and I think I'll read it out loud. Cinemark's CEO does not foresee a return to normality for movie theaters before 2022. Another recent survey evaluated that less than 30% of frequent moviegoers would consider going back to theaters to watch a movie before a vaccine for COVID-19 become available. OTT services are exploding in sales, and being film festivals such as an essential part of the film ecosystem, I would like to ask if a merging process of both online and presential events should be highly incentivized by community, turning this into a point of evolution rather than a temporary alternative to film festivals all over the world. Whew. Okay, go for it, Stacey.
That's a lot to think about. I mean, I know I've seen many filmmakers. I know like Spike Lee on Instagram a week ago posted something about, he wasn't going to go back to movie theaters until there was a vaccine. I think that movie theaters obviously won't be full until there's a vaccine or there's some solution. Again, I think that disruption often changes things and sometimes changes things for the better. So I think that we're going to come out of this. I don't know what it's going to look like to have a experience where you go to the movies, but I think people are going to want to go out. Are they going to want to go to, like an Alamo Draft House type movie theater because you can have dinner and a movie, so it's more of an experience? Are you going to want to offer more things that are kind of like film festivals where you invite participants, directors and producers to do talks, or do you have live music if the film's about music? I think people are just going to have to be inventive about how to get people out of their homes, experiencing cinema, outside again. And I just know as a filmmaker, I've had movies that have been in theaters, and I've had movies that have premiered on Netflix. All I want is for people to watch my movies and talk about them and catalyze a conversation. So at the end of the day, it's about creating great work and telling great stories, and people will find them, whether it's in theaters or at their home or some platform that we don't even know about yet.
All right, great. And we have reached the end of this amazing panel. I'm sure we could talk about this for a lot longer, but we probably need to go back to, surfing the web and watching these amazing films that are coming out online. So thank you, Stacey and Ryan and Skizz. I really appreciate your participation. And of course, we here at Entertainment Law Partners are here to help and answer any questions further based off of this webinar or anything else you may need. You can find Entertainment Law Partners at Ent Law Partners on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And Ryan and Stacey and Skizz, if you'd like to give our audience a way that they can find you, just let us know here really quick.
Skizz.net.
Ryan?
I have a website that's just staceyreiss.com.
Great.
Well, check the trades. You'll be able to reach me at a new place hopefully next week.
Okay,
Congrats.
great. Congrats. Yeah, everything's changing new. One other quick note, special thank you and much appreciation to my producer and director and law clerk, Kelmer Messina. Thank you so much, Kelmer. And just one last note, I just want to take a moment to say that together we will make change. In our entertainment business, we have the biggest voices. And obviously with everything going on, we want to be positive and make sure that our influence comes across in many other ways. So take care, everybody. Be safe. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.